6 months after I was fired, the board asked me one question on a recorded call. They wanted to know why a $500,000 severance payout had triggered automatically. I did not answer right away. I shared my screen instead. But the story did not start there. It started on a Tuesday morning when my VP decided I was excess cost. At the time, I worked as a senior financial systems manager. I handled executive compensation systems. I modeled merger integration costs. I designed severance frameworks that protected the company during acquisitions. I did not manage teams. I managed rules. Martin Hale was my VP. He had been promoted recently. He talked about speed and efficiency. He liked clean cuts that looked strong in board decks. That morning, his assistant booked me into a glass meeting room. HR was already seated. A printed folder sat on the table. Martin stayed standing. "This is a cost reduction initiative," he said. "Your role is redundant." I waited. He flipped the folder closed and looked at me. "You're expensive, replaceable, and not strategic anymore." That was it. I nodded once. I signed the exit acknowledgement. I handed over my badge. I walked out without saying a word. At that moment, they believed the decision was final. They were wrong. The next morning, I opened my archive. I kept copies of everything I worked on. That was normal in my role. Compensation systems required traceability. I started with my original executive offer letter. It was 6 pages long. I read it line by line. Then I opened the retention addendum issued after the merger 18 months earlier. I remembered helping draft it. Section 4.2 caught my attention. It stated that if my role was eliminated within 24 months of a change of control, severance protections applied regardless of restructuring language. I highlighted it. Then I opened the severance policy. I recognized the formatting. I had written parts of it 3 years earlier. The purpose was clear: prevent executives from being quietly removed after mergers under the label of cost-cutting. I scrolled to the trigger conditions. They were listed in plain language. I copied them into a separate document. I did not contact anyone yet. I built a timeline. Termination date, within 24 months of the merger. Reason for termination, cost reduction initiative. Performance documentation, none attached. I verified the termination letter again. The wording mattered. It did not mention misconduct. It did not mention underperformance. It did not include any warning history. That mattered. I checked the severance clause again. It stated that if all trigger conditions were met, payout was automatic. No executive approval required. No VP discretion allowed. No override language included. The amount was listed clearly: $500,000. Board mandated, non-discretionary, once triggered, irrevocable. I leaned back and saved the file. This was not theory. This was math. I cross-referenced board approvals next. The retention addendum had been approved during a post-merger session. I pulled the meeting minutes. The resolution number was visible. I checked the signature block. Martin Hale's digital signature was there. I paused on that page. Then I opened prior severance cases. I searched for the same clause language. 3 names appeared. Different departments, different years, same clause. Each had been paid in full. No disputes, no delays. I created a separate folder labeled Precedent. I saved screenshots. I saved approval dates. I did not rush. The trap was not about speed. It was about alignment. By the end of the week, I had one clean document. It showed the timeline. It showed the trigger conditions. It showed precedent. It showed board approval. I read it once more. I did not email HR. I did not contact legal. I did not respond to Martin. Silence was not avoidance. Silence was position. I closed my laptop and waited, because the system always spoke eventually, and when it did, it would not need my voice. The following Monday, HR sent a routine exit email. It listed final paycheck timing. It mentioned benefits coverage. It said nothing about severance. That omission mattered. I printed the email and added it to the folder. Then I opened the termination letter again. The subject line read, "Position elimination, cost reduction." I highlighted those words. Inside the letter, there was no reference to performance reviews, no warnings, no improvement plans. I checked my last annual review. It was rated exceeds expectations. I saved that too. The system did not lie. It only recorded, and it was recording everything. I reviewed the retention addendum again, slower this time. Section 4.2 had 3 subsections. The first defined change of control. The second defined protected period. The third defined involuntary termination without cause. The language was simple. Without cause meant no misconduct and no documented performance failure. I compared it to my termination file. There was nothing there. No write-ups, no warnings, no corrective action. Just cost reduction. I copied the subsection word for word into my working document. Then I added citations to the policy that referenced it. I did not interpret anything. I quoted.
Next, I checked the internal governance manual. It explained who could approve severance decisions. Operational VPs could recommend, HR could process, legal could review, but override authority rested with the board only. That section had been updated after the merger. I remembered that meeting. I had flagged the risk of VPs using restructuring to bypass contracts. The board agreed. The language was clear. No operational leader may nullify or delay a severance trigger once conditions are met. I highlighted it in yellow. Then I checked the date. The policy update predated my termination. That mattered. I waited another week. No one contacted me. That was expected. Severance systems did not trigger alarms immediately. They surfaced during reconciliation. I logged into my personal calendar and counted days. Day 14 since termination. Day 21 since merger protection still active. The window was open. I drafted a short internal memo for myself. It was 1 page. It listed facts only. No opinions, no conclusions, just a map. If someone challenged the payout later, this would be my anchor. I saved it and did nothing else. On Friday afternoon, I received a generic system notification. It confirmed my employee profile had been fully deactivated. That meant payroll reconciliation was next. That meant severance review would follow. I printed the notification. Then I closed my folder. Everything was in place. I had not pushed, I had not warned, I had not escalated. I had only aligned the documents, and once systems aligned, people reacted. I leaned back and waited for the first response. It would not be friendly. The email from legal arrived on a Wednesday morning. The subject line was neutral, severance clarification. That alone told me something was wrong. The message said the severance clause in my retention addendum was under review. It said the payout was being placed on hold due to restructuring language. The phrase they used mattered. Non-applicable due to restructuring. I read it twice. They were trying to close the window quietly. The email ended with one sentence. We will follow up once our review is complete. There was no date. I opened my calendar and counted again. If the hold lasted 30 days, the payment window would expire. The clause would become irrelevant by default. This was the point where most people reacted fast. I didn't. I opened my folder. I treated the email like a system error. I did not reply immediately. Instead, I pulled the 3 precedent cases again. I checked each one for timing. All 3 executives had been terminated during restructuring periods. All 3 had been paid anyway. I checked the approval paths. In each case, legal had reviewed. In each case, the board resolution had overridden restructuring language. I created a comparison table. Column 1, my case. Columns 2 through 4, the precedents. Same clause, same trigger, same payout. The only difference was timing. They were hoping time would work for them. I saved the table. Then I drafted my response. My reply to legal was short. I acknowledged receipt of their message. Then I attached 3 documents. The first was a memo listing prior severance payouts under the same clause. Each entry had a date, a role, and a payout amount. The second was a highlighted board resolution. It stated clearly that restructuring language could not override retention agreements. The third was a single paragraph. It referenced fiduciary duty obligations under ERSA. It did not accuse anyone. It did not threaten action. It simply stated that selective enforcement of executive severance clauses expose risk. I ended the email with one line. Please advise if any of the attached precedents are no longer considered valid. I sent it. Then I waited. 3 days passed. No response. That silence was not comfort. It was pressure. I checked my records again. I checked dates. I checked wording. Everything still aligned. On the 4th day, legal replied. The tone had changed. They thanked me for the documentation. They said they were reviewing internal precedent. They said the matter was being escalated. Escalation meant governance. Governance meant audit visibility. That was not good for Martin. I did not reply. I did not need to. The system had moved beyond him.
On Friday afternoon, I received a second message from legal. It was brief. The severance hold has been lifted pending final review.
No explanation, no acknowledgement. The payout was no longer frozen, but nothing had been approved yet. This was the most dangerous point. The clause was alive, but exposed. If someone rewrote the narrative now, they could still slow it down. They could still try to reclassify the termination. I knew what came next. Once audits touched the file, people started asking questions. And when people asked questions, someone usually tried to control the story. I closed my laptop. The next move would not be mine. The board audits started the following week. I knew because legal sent a calendar invite titled Executive Severance Review. It included board members. It included external auditors. It included HR legal counsel. It did not include Martin. That absence mattered. Once an issue reached audit, operational leaders lost control of the narrative. Everything moved through documentation. That same evening, Martin emailed me. The subject line was careful. Let's resolve this professionally. The message was short. He said there had been confusion. He said he wanted to clear things up. He asked for a call. I did not reply. Not yet. The call came later that night. Martin sounded calm at first. This is routine, he said. These things happen during restructuring. I stayed quiet. He continued. We can make this clean, he said. No need to involve the board further. That was the shift, from authority to politeness. He said the word clean twice. Then he said what he actually wanted. He asked if I could help reclassify the termination. He suggested updating the reason to role consolidation. He said it would simplify audit review. I did not interrupt. I took notes. He was still trying to manage optics. The next day, Martin emailed again. This time, the tone was softer. He thanked me for my past work. He said he respected my professionalism. He said the company valued discretion. He attached a draft waiver. It delayed the severance payout until after the audit window. It also included language releasing claims related to termination classification. That mattered. I opened the document and read it slowly. Then I closed it. I did not sign. I did not comment. I waited. 2 days later, Martin called again. His voice had changed. This is getting bigger than it needs to be, he said. He mentioned board questions. He mentioned audit exposure. He mentioned reputational risk. Then he said it plainly. Help me fix this. That was desperation. He wanted me to protect him from the system he had ignored. I listened until he finished. Then I spoke. I don't need to fight this, I said. The documents already did. There was silence on the line. I ended the call. After that, Martin stopped contacting me. Legal did not. They sent a confirmation that the severance review would proceed during the scheduled board call. They requested that I be prepared to answer factual questions. No arguments, no opinions, just facts. I organized my materials one last time. Retention addendum, severance policy, board memo, each in order. I did not rehearse what to say. I did not need to. At this stage, the outcome depended on sequence, not emotion, and the sequence was already locked. The board call started on time. There were 9 people on the line: board members, legal, external auditors, HR legal counsel. Martin joined last. He said nothing. The chair spoke first. We are reviewing an executive severance trigger, she said. We need clarity on how this was activated. I was asked to share my screen. I did. I did not explain. I showed. The first document was the retention addendum issued after the merger. The trigger language was highlighted. The protected period was highlighted. The payout amount was highlighted. No one interrupted. I moved to the second document, the severance policy. I scrolled slowly. The clause stated that any role eliminated for cost reduction during the protected period triggered automatic severance. No discretion, no exceptions. Then I showed authorship metadata. My name was listed as the policy contributor. The auditors asked one question. Was this language approved? I opened the board minutes. The approval vote was recorded. The resolution number was visible. Martin still did not speak. I opened the third document, the board memo issued after the merger. It restricted severance override authority. Operational VPs could not delay, reclassify, or nullify a trigger once conditions were met. I highlighted the line. Then I opened the signature page. Martin's digital signature was there. The chair paused. "That answers the authority question," she said. The auditors nodded. There were no follow-up questions. The silence lasted longer than any argument could have. The board voted before the call ended. The payout was approved in full. Processing was immediate. Legal confirmed release timing within 48 hours. Before the meeting closed, another item was noted. Martin's compensation authority would be reviewed pending governance findings. That review happened quietly. 3 months later, his authority was removed. 6 months later, his role was eliminated during restructuring. There was no announcement, no email, just an update in the org chart. The funds hit my account on a Friday morning. $500,000. I closed my laptop. I did not contact anyone. I did not post about it. I let the record stand on its own. Systems do not care about titles. They care about alignment. If you were in my place, would you have spoken up earlier or waited? If you want more stories where patience beats power, like the video and subscribe.